Councilor Perruzza, are you there? Councilor Perruzza? Moving right along. Oh, there you are, Councilor Perruzza. You ready? You're on.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I have a motion I'd like to move, and that bicycle lanes be implemented on Jarvis Street as soon as possible in advance of the resolution of the Jarvis Streetscape Improvements Class Environmental Assessment Study. And the reason why I moved that motion, Speaker, is we've heard over and over again from both staff and others on why and how the bike lanes are not really contingent on the environmental assessment process, and they are something that can proceed separately, and they are something that can be implemented essentially right away. So I would like to move that motion and provide our transportation folks to do that, because I think really what we are talking about, and when you look at the issues that have been outlined and debated, what we're really talking about is creating a safer environment for the users of our roads. And this stretch of street is being currently used by pedestrians. It's being used by cyclists. It's being used by drivers of cars. It's being used by public transit and by a number of other modes of transport. And it's about making the road environment safer for all of the users. That's really what we are talking about. It's not about squeezing one in favor of another. It's about, because you have cyclists on the street now. You have lots of cyclists on the street, and cyclists who are being forced in a very to ride in a very unsafe environment, which creates and causes conflict, and it's something that we should try to avoid. I just want to pick up on something that Councilor Holliday said earlier. I love my car. I live in the suburbs. I live at Islington, between Finch and Steeles. It's about as far north as you can go in this city. You know, I live a couple of blocks away from Steeles. I cross the other side. I'm no longer in Toronto. But I'll tell you this. I love my car. I love my motorcycle. I love my bicycle. I use all of those things, and on occasion I like to walk as well. And I have to tell you that if we made our streets safer for cyclists, I would be able to safely use my bicycle to come into downtown Toronto far more often than I do. What I'm forced to do, because our streets are very, very unsafe, is I'm basically forced to go down into the ravine, ride along the Humber River as far downtown as I can, mostly onto Bloor Street, and then cut across Bloor Street. I can do that on my bicycle in less time, and I add 6 kilometers to my trip. I do that in less time than I do in my car. Then I make the same trip in my car to City Hall. That's a fact. The problem is at nighttime going back. In the ravine, it's very dark. You have deer, you have all kinds of other users. So I can't use the ravine. I'm forced to use the streets. And quite frankly, in the suburbs, we all know the streets feel very unsafe on your bicycle. It's a given. It's a fact. In the suburbs, you know, the people's minds are about in their cars. They're not looking for cyclists. They're not intimidated by cyclists, and the environment is very, very unsafe. There's also something else I'd like to speak to as well. And one of the councillors said, I never see any cyclists in the suburbs on roads. Well, you know what? If you get up at 5 and 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning, I would venture to say that almost 12 months of the year, there are a lot of cyclists on Steeles, on Islington, on Finch. Cyclists who are going to work. What we fail to recognize in this debate, Speaker, is that unlike me, who can indulge in driving and motorcycling and bicycling, because I have those options, a lot of new arrivals who are very comfortable on a bicycle, who can't afford a car, who can't afford our public transport, because it, at the end of the day, is very expensive for some workers as well, who use their bicycle to get into those industrial parks and into those factories. I see them all the time, and we force them into a very, very unsafe circumstance by riding their bicycles on the streets, competing with big trucks, competing with tanker trailers, competing with our buses.
Extension, all in favor?
And it makes it very, very, very difficult for them. So in my view, Madam Speaker, you don't have to build it to see if they will come. They are already there. We just need to figure out how it is that we make those transport environments friendly for everybody, for public transit, for cars, for motorcycles, for bicycles. Everybody has the same rights to our road system. I love all of those modes of transport, and we need to make sure that everybody, irrespective of what it is that they use, be entitled to the same privileges. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much. There are no questions. The next speaker is Councilor Parker, and we still don't have any applause in the gallery, if you wouldn't mind.